Hi, this is Dr. Flight, and we're going to have a segment that deals with branding and the introduction of branding, what brands are. We're going to talk a little bit about why brands are effective, and especially in our culture today, we are inundated with brands. Brands are all around us. Can't help but avoid having brands in our lives. And brands we'll find actually have a personality. And for some people, the personality of themselves, their own self-image, is often reflected in the brands that they choose to buy and wear and purchase. So there's a lot of psychological connections between brands, brand associations, and what brands mean to people. And more importantly, from a organizational perspective, from a business perspective, what we do is we develop brands in order to match personalities of ourselves, our firm, and also of the market that we serve. So brands are, and branding in general is a really big field. Tons and tons and tons of money and effort and science and research go into the art of branding. It's an important topic to talk about, and especially if we're going to launch new products, so we need to think about the brand that will be associated, that we will create, that we will make for the products that will ultimately go into the marketplace. So an introduction then to branding. As we begin to talk about brands, it's important to remember that companies believe that their name and their product and their service have some value above and beyond the actual value they produce in their product, and also above and beyond the value of their actual company. So we have a book value that the company has from all of its assets and contracts and so forth, but there's also some intrinsic value that the company has as a function of its name, and all the different marks that associate it in the public domain. So we have different concepts associated with the company, such as the product, the name of the company, the logos that they use, the shapes, the symbols, the colors, if they have slogans and so forth, the product shape. If those are unique to the company, then they carry some value to the company because they're recognizable by the consumers and by the market that they serve. So these things are all elements that we try to develop and we try to create as an organization. They're in our control to a great extent. The one thing that we do not have in our control is how people remember our name and remember what we are and who we are. So as we think about branding, what we want to think about are the things we can control, and then also think of how we are perceived by the marketplace and if there are things we can do to control that to some extent. So this segment that we talk about here, it's just an introduction to branding and some of the basic concepts that are associated with brands. The first and foremost thing we think about is that a brand is a name. It's a name that we choose to call ourselves as a company or call ourselves as a product or organization. So some names convey meaning and convey information as a function of what they do. So Geek Squad, which is a part of Best Buy that is focused on helping people with computer needs, alludes to this notion that somebody who really knows their way around electronics or technology is there to help you. And it suggests that if you're in need of technical help with a computer, a geek is who you want to try to identify. So that is a play on words, and it's of fun. It's not meant to be derogatory or anything like that, although I guess some people might take offense to it if they are a geek and they don't want to be said that. But it's meant to be rememberable, and it's meant to convey information directly to the consumer as to what the product or service is that they offer. So that's one of the things names sometimes do. Not all the times, but sometimes they relate to the qualities or the features or the benefit that the product has, and can be built into the name, and sometimes not. There are plenty of names out there for products, Wendy's, McDonald's, Trump Tower, that are named after maybe either the founder or just are arbitrarily designed. So this isn't always great, except that names are what we build into them. If you're starting from scratch, most companies try to build a name for their brand that is somewhat representative of the brand. But again, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it's the name of the company's owner or inventor and so forth. But generally, we try to choose names that convey some information about what the product is in order for it to have some resonance in the consumer. Over time, there are many different positive things that happen from having a brand and having strong brand value. From a customer's perspective, branding helps do a lot of signaling, and it helps identify for customers very quickly products they want or products they don't want. So over time, BMW, the Bavarian Motor Works does not have any suggestion. It has suggestions towards maybe features, but not really benefits, not really functions so much. But over time, BMW has come to be known as something that has great engineering. So that information's conveyed when somebody sees the BMW logo. They assume, rightly or wrongly, they assume that some great engineering has been placed on that product because it's a BMW. So there's information then that has been developed over time, and now conveyed to the customer. Brands signal consistent quality. They confer status. If we know a brand particularly well, we can assume that the quality is going to be high or consistent anyways with what we expect. We often use brands as a signal to others of what type of person we are, and who we want to reflect from an image perspective. So I have a personal image of myself, and I wear a brand that reflects that image. That's certainly something that we do. And making purchase decisions easier is another big reason why brands help. So as people making decisions, as consumers make decisions to buy a product, we have a very poor ability to handle lots of different decision factors at once. When we go to buy a product, we very rarely can handle more than a couple decision criteria and maybe not more than 4 or 5 different types of products all at once. We're just not meant or designed to be able to process information very well. So if I know a brand name, then what I can do is use that as what we call a heuristic or a mental shortcut in order to be able to make my decision-making process much faster. So from a decision-making science perspective, brands help customers in their selection set. It helps them reduce their selection set very quickly and make decisions very rapidly, whereas otherwise we would have to spend a lot of time studying products and so on and so forth. For the company, the company benefits as well from brands and having a brand name, a strong brand name, because it creates loyalty among customers. So if I know I like a BMW, then when I go to buy a car, then I'm probably going to not really look at other cars. I'm going to look at the car that has the brand that I like. And so I'll be loyal, I'll come back to them over and over again, and so on and so forth. This allows companies to charge more money for their product than they normally would. So we can actually charge more for our product if it has a strong brand name associated with it. We also have this idea that when this STP thing, that's segmenting, targeting, and positioning. So we talked about segmenting in the past, and you're probably familiar with positioning in the past. When we do these activities, if we have a consistent brand, then we can use that consistent brand over lots and lots of products that we have. So actually, when we get into positioning, the idea of having one brand used over and over and over again helps us position the product faster in the marketplace than otherwise would happen. A couple other benefits the company endeavors when they have a strong brand is this notion that brands help shield you from competitive actions. It also helps shield you from negative actions that might help it. And in fact, if somebody really loves your brand and you goof up and make a mistake and have a problem with your product, they're much more likely to forgive you. They're much more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt if they love your brand, and they're much more likely to buy your product again after a service failure, assuming they like your brand, and then you can make the product right again and so forth. Okay, and finally, brands help encourage channel partner support. Okay, so if I have a distributor or a retailer who's carrying my product, if I have a familiar brand to them, when I introduce new products under that same brand, they're much more likely to carry my product and to sell it to their existing customers because they're already used to us and they already know us, and we've built up some brand equity with them and so forth. Okay, so lots of benefits for the customer, lots of benefits for the company to think about its brand and the value that its name, the logos it uses, the color scheme it uses, all of those types of things matter, when we're talking about branding and brands, because they all contribute to positive effects for the company and makes the decision-making process easier for customers as they're buying your particular product. Okay, so how does this function? How do brands and branding really work? Well, it's a psychological thing that happens, we think, that over time, consumers begin to place different meanings with the names that are out there that we provide them. And we call this brand association, or something that's driven actually by what's called the associative network theory, where we have some type of emotion or some type of concept that we eventually attach to the brand because of some result that we've seen in the past. So we see a particular brand and we associate it with some type of attribute or some type of feature or something. So I see Wrangler jeans, and when I think of Wrangler jeans, I think of rough, tough, ruggedness, hardworking. Right? I think of something that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to be tough. So I've associated those features with that brand name because of some experiences I've had with that brand name over time. Okay, so when I think of Apple, I think of sophisticated, I think of easy to use but highly technical, I think of current, I think of trendy, I think of probably the same things I think of when I think of Starbucks. Maybe, kind of a little trendy type of a thing, but it's an association that I'm making to the brand. And so now that brand doesn't just represent a product, it represents a feeling or an atmosphere or something along those lines. So different product benefits can be associated with this. So Bose speakers, we associate with high quality listening devices. Walmart, we associate with everyday low prices. BMW, as we've mentioned before, we associate with precision engineering. We can have emotional benefits that we associate with products. Mont Blanc pens and products we associate with wealth. Well, they're expensive, of course. They're expensive products. Affluence, wealth, sophistication. Tom's like the shoe and the eyeglass company we associate with social responsibility, corporate responsibility, and social causes. Abercrombie may be a way outdated brand, but it used to be associated as hip, fresh, and young at the time. So again, emotional benefits can be can be drawn here as well. We can also associate different product features. So size, like the example of the Pringles potato chip, the Pringles chip, I guess it's a potato. I don't know. The size and the shape of the can, though, is immediately recognizable, and we know exactly what it's for. So product features that relate to the color, size, shape, flavor, and so on would relate to maybe an association with that shape and the product itself, or the flavor and the product itself, and so on. Okay, so associations are mental leaps that we make, or mental connections that we make between otherwise unfamiliar, unrelated objects or concepts, but we mentally link them together because we, for whatever reason, there's the mental things going on where we just bring things together. And so that's what we kind of use for this. All right, so brands then can serve as a social concept to enhance image. Brands can also become a focal point for us for points of bonding together. So one of the key concepts that we have here, when we talk about brands, are brand communities now. So one of the things we want to manage is the community of people who associate with our brand. And that could be a focal point for bonding. So here's the thing, like I could be a member of the Harley Davidson's, or I could follow Harley Davidson's Facebook page, and I could follow their Twitter posts, and I could even be a member of a Harley Davidson fan club, yet I don't own a Harley Davidson. I don't own a Harley Davidson. I'm a big time fan of the Red Sox. The Red Sox to me are the absolute best baseball team. They always have been and they always will be in my mind. Yet I live in Illinois and the Red Sox are in Boston, and I get to see them play maybe once every couple years. So I'm not like a hardcore actual purchaser, but I'm a big time fan and part of that community. And so it's part of the brand, like the Red Sox Nation or the Harley Nation or the EIU Panther Nation that we're a part of. Yet it's the brand and it's the association with the brand that I'm really, really engaged with. Okay, so brand associations are critical. One key other factor that I want to quickly discuss is this notion of brand personality. As we develop a brand, we want to develop an emotional connection that people can have with the brand, or the association that they have with the brand, as a personality or personality trait. This is not uncommon, and this is actually pretty something that is written about and focused on quite a bit in terms of how we want to portray our company emotionally or personally, and how that can relate to the consumers who use our product. Okay, so MTV, again, came out in the 1980s or so, a phenomenal revolution for those who were, cable users back then, who could get MTV, opened up a whole new world for a lot of people, and represented a lifestyle. It represented a culture. It represented kind of the new era of music and so on and so forth. And so the brand became a personality in and of itself, and the brand was reflected by its VJs, the people who represented the music and so on. And I think that the musical content that was on MTV when it first launched was certainly a personality type of a thing that they were developing. Here's a graphic of a whole bunch of other brands and some emotional or personality traits that have been shown to demonstrate these brands, be demonstrated in these brands. So sincerity is an emotional or personality type. Competency, excitement, or the ability to generate excitable interests, and so on and so forth. So those are all personalities. So we have McDonald's, Pepperidge Farms, Hallmark for sure. Hallmark is a sincere brand. Competency would be companies that we think are very technically savvy and able to develop things well. Toyota, Oracle, IBM, SAS maybe. How about Apple maybe? Something like that. Exciting. So exciting would be a personality trait. Nike, eBay maybe. I'm not sure Motorola, maybe they've lost some of that and so on. Here's some additional ones: sophistication and ruggedness. How about ruggedness as a personality trait? LL Bean, Everlast, John Deere, Die Hard, those types of things. Sophistication, of course, is there as well. So it's important then to think about how you want your brand to be portrayed and relating that brand to customers. So the Bentley brand is sophisticated, and their target audience members should also share the sophisticated personality type in order for that connection to be made. So what would happen if Bentley started producing products and advertising and things like that that were rugged? That would be like a big time contrast or conflict with what they currently are doing, and they would probably enter into a new market segment that's less sophisticated and more rugged in personality type. That'd be kind of weird, but they could certainly try to do that. All right, so that's the idea of personality as it relates to branding. One last little thing we do. This is an old image. But the power of branding is illustrated really well in this image. Here's the alphabet, A through Z, and here are letters that are represented by logos or by script lettering that is associated with certain brands. So we have A, B. Growing up, this B was very, very big for me. It looks like a bubblegum or Bubblicious type thing. And for breakfast, Eggo waffles, Ices, Kool-Aid, Oreos, Pez, Reese's, Starburst, probably Q-tip for Q, maybe York Peppermint Patty, and so on. So a lot of these are super recognizable, and all you need is a color scheme, and all you really need is kind of the design of their font or the way their letter is written, and you know who they are. And think about how powerful that is, and that is branding. That is the power of branding, to be able to, educate an entire marketplace solely on, Campbell's right there. This is probably an old Gatorade one, I would guess, something like that. Maybe this is Tide, Extra Gum, Zest, soap, I would imagine is that one. So very powerful. Here are actually the answers. So Zest, York Peppermint Patty, Extra, Whisk, V8. I could have had a V8. M&Ms and so forth. So the power then of branding is really demonstrated well just in this one brief little fun example here as we wrap things up. So what a brand is a big question, kind of definitionally, it's a logo, it's a symbol, it's a name above all things, it's a jingle maybe, something along those lines. The benefits of the branding process for customers and companies is plentiful. There's lots and lots of applications of why branding is a good thing for customers and a good thing for companies. And then finally, making brand associations, and specifically being able to tie those associations to personality traits is something that, and brand communities is something that is big in the current right now as we move forward.